What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Shep's Garage video, and today we're doing a different type of video that I thought of, and that is ranking all of the cars I have driven up until now. I am currently 18 years old, and I've been driving for about 2 years, and I have driven a ton of cars. But you probably are wondering, what is the best car you ever driven, or what's the worst car you ever driven? Well, in today's video, you're going to find that out, because today I'm going to be ranking all 30 cars I have driven. That's right, I've been driving for 2 years, and I've driven 30 cars. So without further ado, let's get straight into this video. Now, if you're new to the channel and it's the first time seeing my face on your screen, don't forget to please click that subscribe button down below for more awesome car content like this one. Don't worry, guys, much more Mark A GTI content coming to you very soon, as well as a new car content coming soon. Stay tuned, guys. If you are interested in all types of car content, this is the channel you've been waiting for. Go ahead and subscribe, because I'm trying to become a full-time YouTuber, and I can't do it without your guys' support. Alright, so here's how this is basically going to work. I have driven over 30 cars. So basically, I have a list in front of me of the cars in order, and I'm basically going to read that out to you guys and put a picture of the car and just basically explain why that is the car I have driven, why is that the place it is in, etc. So, keep in mind, this entire list is based on how much I have enjoyed driving said car. Some car I have driven many times, some cars I've only driven once. So keep that in mind, and I'll put pictures up of the car so you can see what car is what, obviously. So let's get started with the best car, and then we'll go down to the worst car. Also, keep in mind one other thing. I am not including my car on this list because I drive my car every day. I've built my car to how I like it. I don't think it's fair to really include my car on this list. So you won't see a Mark 8 GTI on this list because it's my car. So I wanted to make it more fair that way. This is other cars other than my car that I have driven. Let's get started off with number 1. What is the best car I ever driven? Well, to no surprise, it is my mom's 2022 Porsche 911 Carrera 4S. It's the 992 with the 7-speed manual transmission. This car is just a blast every time I drive it. I don't think I've ever had a bad time driving this car. It is such an amazing car. I wish I could drive it more often, but my mom unfortunately limits me, but I think it's for my own good. But when I do get to drive this car, it's such a blast. I love shifting, rolling through the gears. The auto rev matching is pretty cool. I do enjoy it, at least. However, I do know how to rev match myself. So, but it's an awesome, fun car. I do enjoy driving this car. Definitely, by far, the best car I have ever driven in my life. At least for right now. This is the best car I've ever driven. Alright, moving on to number 2. It is a 2019 Porsche 911 GT3 RS. This car was actually my last video. If you haven't seen my last video, I drove this car around New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It was an awesome experience. I did hit some very high speeds, over 100 miles an hour. And you may be thinking, Shep, a GT3 RS is below a 4S manual? What are you thinking? Well, the thing is with the GT3 RS, I didn't really experience the major downforce of this car. Sure, the GT3 definitely sounds a lot better and definitely handled a lot better, but to me, I am a big manual guy, and knowing Porsche, they're probably getting rid of the manual in the 911 very soon, and I think the 911 deserves a manual. I do think the GT3 is a brilliant car, a brilliant piece of automotive history. The 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6, and that is just chef's kiss. However, unfortunately, you know, the PDK is just not my thing. That's just my opinion. You know, you guys can clown me in the comments about how the PDK is an amazing transmission. I just think Porsches deserve manual. So that is why that goes in the number 2 slot. At number 3, we have my dad's previous 2022 Audi e-tron GT. You may be thinking, an electric car at number 3. You're gotta be out of your mind, Shep. Well, this electric car was not any ordinary electric car. Coming from a Tesla Model 3 Performance, this car drove like a supercar. It drove like a sports car. The e-tron GT has got to be one of the best looking Audis to ever come out of the Audi factory. Such a brilliant looking car, and I do miss this car so much. Every day I do think about this car, and I do miss it so much. It was fully electric, got around 230 miles range. Unfortunately, the range just wasn't where we want it to be, and that's why we got rid of it. But when I drove this car, the instant torque, it had 536 horsepower, so it was a rocket. It was a rocket ship. It drove like a beautiful car. I gotta tell you, handling, it didn't drive as big as it looked. It was such a beautiful car, the way it looked, the way the cool spaceship sounds from it. When I did get the chance to drive this car, it was a beautiful car. Inside and out, I do miss this car so damn much, and I honestly would do anything to have this thing back in our driveway. But you know, it is what it is. We had to get rid of it, and you know, I do miss it. Alright, coming in at number 4, we have my grandfather's 2007 Porsche Boxster S. I don't think I've really showed this car that much on my channel. I really should. This car is just amazing. It's a silver car, has the upgraded 3.2 liter engine that you get in the Boxster S. It's a 987. It has the super rare GT3 hardback sport seats. Manual transmission, 6-speed manual transmission. This car's amazing. I've driven this thing a few times, and it is a bunch of fun. Probably the most fun you're ever going to get for around $20,000 to $30,000. I gotta tell you, these 987 Boxsters, I wouldn't be surprised if they start appreciating in value over the next few years, because I gotta tell you, one of the most underrated Porsches ever. The Boxster in general, I don't think gets enough appreciation. I do think that this car drives better than some 911s I've driven, and that's a pretty bold statement because it's a Boxster. You know, it's not a real Porsche, but of course it's a real Porsche. I do really enjoy this car when I get to drive it. Such an awesome car. The 2005-ish Porsche sound with the tight steering you get in these cars. Such a blast. I'm glad my grandfather is enjoying it. I think it has close to 50,000 miles on it now, but such an awesome car, and you know, I really do like this car. So maybe eventually when I do go down and see them, I'll make a video of this thing because it's a pretty cool car. Alright, and at number 5, we have my mom's previous 2017 Porsche 911 Carrera S Cab. This car was a launch car, so it was a pretty early production car. It was Carrera white with the beige interior, Luxor beige I think it's called, with the PDK. This car was a pretty base model. It wasn't super loaded. It didn't have power seats. It didn't have memory seats. It didn't have heated seats. It was a pretty bare bones 911. Really the only options were the transmission and the Bose sound system. It was a pretty base car, and this car was a fun car when I did get to drive it. I only drove it a couple of times, and you know, as I said, I am not a PDK person. I'm not a automatic car person in general. I like manual transmissions. However, I do appreciate the PDK in general. I'm not hating on it, you know, it's just not my first choice in transmission, basically. But this car absolutely rips. Awesome car. I do love the body style of the 991.2s. Probably my favorite body style of Porsche 911 ever. It kind of has the old and the new kind of combined together. I do miss this car, if you can't believe it, you know. Now having the 992 and upgraded looks and everything, it does make me appreciate the 991.2 and the 991s that, you know, were previously around for a long time. But I did really enjoy this car. It was awesome. At number 6, we have a 2022 BMW G80 M3. This car was a 50th Yahar edition. So, one of 500 in the world, and I gotta tell you, you guys are gonna see me in an M3 in the future, because this car surprised me so much. I have never been a BMW guy until I drove this car, and now I have a whole new appreciation for BMW M3s. This car was a 1 of 500 car, lime rock gray, and performance exhaust. This car drove so well. The way this thing handled in the corners, the S58 engine up front, such an amazing car. I would kill to have one of these things, to own one of these things, because I gotta tell you, I think after my GTI, you guys will be seeing me in an F80 or a G80 M3. So, awesome car. I did really enjoy driving this car, so shout out to Kyle. Thank you for letting me drive your car if you're watching this video. But yeah, this car is amazing. I love the way this thing handled. I love the way this thing looks. I love the way that this thing drove. You know, this car was an LCI car, so it had the newer infotainment and everything. Wasn't a massive fan of that, but other than that, this car drove so well. It had the comfort seats with the automatic transmission, so awesome car. This thing shifted. Overall, amazing car. That's all I can say about it. It's just such an awesome car this is. Alright, at number 7, we have a 2022 Porsche Panamera 4S e-hybrid Sport Turismo. This car, the only way I can describe it, it's a very interesting conundrum of a bunch of things combined into one car. You obviously have the Porsche looks, the Porsche styling, and the way the Porsches drive. Then you have this whole other section that it's a family car and it's a hybrid. And don't be mistaken by this is just a normal hatchback wagon thing that's gets you good on gas. I mean, this thing rips, I gotta tell you. This shares the same engine as the Audi S5 and RS5, so it isn't a V8. However, this thing still drove like a Porsche. That's what really surprised me. I thought this was my first time ever driving a Panamera, and I gotta tell you, this thing drove really, really well. I was shocked. It didn't drive how I expected to drive. I expected it was going to be a boat, and I wasn't going to like it that much. It was just a big luxury car. No, this thing does have some sports car DNA in it, which is very surprising considering of how long it is. It didn't drive very big either. So, Porsche Panamera 4SE Hybrid, you know, in electro drive, it's kind of nice to chill. Then in Sport Plus, you can really just rip it, and it's just amazing. So, absolutely amazing car. I love wagons too, don't get me wrong. I think wagons are amazing. It's a shame they're dying here in the United States, but it makes me appreciate that I got to get to behind the wheel of this one. Alright, coming up at number 8, we have a 2022 Mercedes-Benz AMG GT53 4-door. This was my first real, if you want to count this as a real AMG. I've driven Mercedes before, but this was the first real AMG that I've ever driven. And I gotta say that this car surprised me like crazy. I think the AMG GT, like in general, is a pretty well underrated car. I don't think it really gets recognized that much. I think people really care about the big V8 63 versions, but this car really surprised me. This has the V6, because it's the 53, but this thing was extremely fast, extremely comfortable, and overall, it really felt like a sports car. Even though how big it was, it really felt nice. The only thing that I wasn't a massive fan of was how wide this thing is. You really can misjudge it really easily, but in the corners, this thing ripped. The V6 engine in this thing sounded amazing. In Sport Plus, this thing is just a completely different animal. So AMG GT53 4-door lands at number 8 on my list. So pretty cool car. I definitely did enjoy driving this thing. Alright, coming up at number 9, we have my dad's previous 2020 Tesla Model 3 Performance. If you are an OG subscriber, you remember me making videos on this thing. this car was a stealth, so it wasn't a full performance package. It was something called a performance stealth, which is basically a performance but without the performance upgrade. So it didn't have the bigger wheels, the bigger brakes, the lowered suspension, the carbon fiber spoiler, the aluminum pedals, and etc. This was our first ever electric car, and this car was a blast. You know, I think Teslas get hate because that they're just a bang for your buck. I think they get hate because they kind of destroy the car industry. You know, nowadays you can go out and buy a $70,000 Plaid that destroys your $200,000 Audi R8 or Ferrari 458 or Lamborghini Huracan. I mean, that's just the time we live in, and this car was a blast. I think it definitely had its place. It had 450 horsepower, 0 to 60 3.1 seconds. This thing was a freaking rocket. I gotta tell you, I definitely enjoyed driving this car when I got to drive it. And it was a fun car. I gotta tell you, the Model 3 handles super well, especially in the stealth format. I don't think Tesla does the stealth format anymore, but they think they just do the performance. But I gotta tell you, a Model 3 performance is definitely a big bang for your buck. I would not hesitate to own another one of these things. But yeah, Tesla Model 3 performance stealth, a lot of fun to drive, and I definitely think Teslas do get overlooked, but I do have an appreciation for them. Alright, coming up at number 10, we have my mom's first ever Porsche, her 2017 Porsche 718 Boxster. This car was kind of interesting. I only drove it on my learner's permit, so I didn't really go fast. However, I still drove it nonetheless, and this car was interesting. It was the Boxster with the Subaru engine, basically. So it was the it was a Subaru engine. I know that. I don't know the liters off the top of my head right now, but this car was cool. It was a great car to get into the entry of Porsche. It was a black on black car with red calipers. It was a really cool car, and this thing drove really well. It drove like a Porsche would. What's really cool is in sport mode, there would be lots of cool crackles and everything. I did really enjoy this car. However, I would say the downside with this car was it didn't have the DNA that I was looking for in a Porsche, which is why it gets number 10. It was also an automatic car as well, a PDK car, so that's why it gets number 10. But still, cool car that I definitely enjoyed when we had it. Alright, coming up to number 11, we have my grandmother's car, which is a 2018 Audi A5 convertible. This car, it has nothing to do with speed, it has nothing to do with power. I would say it's more of a luxury-oriented convertible, and this car is just a nice car in general. It's a fun car in general. It's an Audi convertible. I mean, how can you not like this car? This car, it's fun, it's sporty. The pickup is alright, but once again, luxury car, so it's not an S5 or an RS5 convertible. Just a normal A5 convertible, and Audis do have their sense of sportiness too. When I drove this car, I definitely just enjoyed to drive it like a luxury car should be. Nice cruise, top down, wind in your hair, that type of story. So this car lands at number 11 because, well, luxury car, but not sort of speeder oriented in any way, shape, or form. Alright, coming up at number 12, we have one of my friends' 2023 Porsche Macan base. This car, he bought it new, which is really cool. He spent a long time looking for this car. It's a black on red interior car, so it's pretty cool. And once again, the base Macan I do think is really overlooked as a Porsche. I still think it drives like a Porsche. It uses the same engine as my GTI, actually, a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with 262 horsepower. This thing still rips. I mean, this thing is still a fun car. It doesn't feel like a small SUV. It really drives like a sports car, and I really do like the way this car drives. I think the base Macan is really overlooked in general as a car. People do give it hate on it, saying, oh, for 70 grand you would have bought an SQ5, or who cares? you really are paying for the Porsche build quality and the Porsche DNA in this car, and this is a really fun car to drive. I really did enjoy. Number 13, this is going to come as a surprise. This is one of our friends' 2023 Lexus RX 500h Performance. Now, this car is interesting because, you know, when I say that, Lexus in general, they're not known for performance-oriented cars. They made the LFA, they made the LC500, they made a bunch of really good cars, but they're also well known to be a more luxury-oriented brand. So when this car came out, I was like, huh, this is a very interesting car, because Lexus has never made a performance SUV before, but this is their first ever performance SUV. I think it has like over 400 horsepower stock, and let me tell you, one of our friends got this car and I drove it, and it was a gray over red interior car, and this car drove so well. As I walked away from it, I was like, wow, that was a Lexus SUV I just drove. Like, it was a really well and surprisingly amazing driving car. You know, put in sport mode, this car rips. I gotta tell you, it's a pretty quick SUV, and you know, the price does reflect that. I mean, it's a pretty expensive car for a Lexus, but it's worth it, definitely. I think the RX 500h is the most exciting RX ever made, 100%. You know, sure, you do sacrifice fuel economy a little bit, but it is a hybrid at the same time, and it uses the electric motor combined with the engine to create that over 400 horsepower figure. So really cool car, very surprising, and after you hear a lot of these cars on this list, you're gonna understand why it's better than why it's in number 13. So top 20, I would say that the RX 500h is a very good driving car. So if you're ever in the market for a luxury SUV that has a little bit of spicy performance in it, take a look at that RX 500. Moving on to number 14, we have my friend's 2013 BMW X3. This was a base 228i xDrive model, so I think that meant it was the base engine and it was a four-wheel drive car. This car, it was cool. I am a BMW fan. This car drove like a BMW would. It has more sportiness in it than more luxury features. I think this car drove really well for an SUV, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't really floor it very much, but, you know, this car is a luxury car. It's, you know, it's how a BMW X3 should be. It's a nice luxury SUV that can get from point A to point B. You know, it wasn't an M Sport model, but it was just a nice car in general. I do like the way that BMWs drive in their sporty modes, and I drove this in those modes, and you know, it landed number 14 on this list. So pretty cool car. I did like it, and you know, I'm a big fan of the new X3, the M40i with the B58. Mwah, chef's kiss for that one. Alright, at number 15, we have my mom's old 2020 Volvo XC90. This is the car that I learned to drive on when I got my license. This was the car that I wasn't howling around the parking lots on, and this car was a nice car to drive. You know, it was a T6 Momentum model, so it had the bigger engine, but it was a base trim level. I like this car. I really like the color. This car ended up actually being a lemon, so the dealer actually bought it back from us because of how many numerous issues this car had. Well, when we did have this car, it was a nice driving car. My mom's on 3 XC90s, so, you know, she just kept cycling through them, but this was a nice car. I did enjoy it. It was a nice, you know, luxury SUV. Can't really complain, but in dynamic mode, which was the sportiest driving mode, this car drove pretty well. It did hold the gears high enough, and the body roll was there, but overall, nice driving car. Landed on number 15 on this list. Alright, moving on to number 16, which is a 2018 Tesla Model S P90D. Now, you might be thinking, 18, Shep? I mean, you put a XC90, an X3, and a Lexus above this car. Let me explain. So this car was a Tesla loaner car, and unfortunately, Tesla dealerships or Tesla service centers with their loaner cars, with their performance-oriented loaner cars, they lock them in chill mode, which is the slowest, comfiest driving mode. They lock them in that mode. So I couldn't really test ludicrous mode on this car. So I'm basically going off that I've driven a P90D in chill mode. This car in chill mode is slow. It's slow, and it's basically just a luxury car. I do like the Model S. I think it's a really nice car. In chill mode, it's kind of boring. No offense. I do think it's a nice car inside and out. I definitely am a big Tesla fanboy. Well, I like Tesla. I would say I'm a Tesla fanboy, but I like Tesla. I own stock with Tesla. And this car in chill mode, it's kind of boring. It's not it. So I'm just going purely based off of chill mode, and it lands at number 16. At number 17, we have my grandfather's old 2017 Volvo XC60. This car is a nice car. It doesn't have any sportiness in it whatsoever, but this is just a nice luxury car in general. I really do like this car. Unfortunately, they don't have it anymore. It actually got totaled. My grandfather got rear-ended, but thankfully, Volvo does what they do best and makes very safe cars, and it kept him alive, and he walked away with no injuries, thankfully. So thank you, Volvo, for making cars that are built like tanks. This car kept him alive in a rear-end collision, so they don't have it anymore, unfortunately. But when they did have this car, it was a nice car, and I did enjoy driving it when I got to drive it when I was on the Cape. So, nice car, lands at number 17. At number 18, we have my mom's, but now my brother's, for now, 2021 Audi Q8. This car is a really beautiful looking car inside and out. It's in this really rare color called Vicuna Beige. We bought it new. It's a really nice car. It's a really well-spec'd car. It's a premium plus, and it has over 30,000 miles on it as I speak. And this car, the only reason why it lands at number 18 is that it's a tank. It's big, it's a tank, it has no pickup whatsoever, and even though this thing has a 300 horsepower V6, you really have to stomp on it to really make it go anywhere. So, number 18, this is the Q8. This isn't like a sporty driving car by no means. That's why the SQ8 and RSQ8 exist. But, yep, this Q8 lands at number 18. Do I enjoy driving it? I would say sometimes. I do find it's just a luxury car in general, and it's not meant for the speed. But that's why it lands at number 18. At number 19, we have a 2022 Lexus NX 350h. This car is the mid-size Lexus hybrid, and I really liked this car when I drove it. And I drove this car a few times, and I have to say, in the eco mode, that's the nicest mode to drive this car. You just put it in drive, and you don't have to think about it. And what's really crazy is how the MPG that I got on this car. I think in just normal city driving in eco mode, I got like 40 miles per gallon, which in, like, I'm, as a person of sportiness, as a person that likes sportiness, sporty driving, I get like 15 miles to the gallon in my GTI, and I rip that thing every single day. Whereas this car, like, it's nice just to have a nice luxury car to just sit behind and drive and not think about power and 0 to 60 and torque and all those figures. It's just a nice daily driver, cruiser, because it's just an overall nice car in general. But it lands at number 19 because it's just a very nice, chill, luxury car. At number 20, we have a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. This car was one of my friend's cars. It's all blacked out. It's cool. I am not a Jeep person. I've never been a Jeep person. I do think the 392 Rubicon is pretty cool, but other than that, like, I'm not a Jeep person. So, I mean, there's not really much to say about this other than that it was an okay car when I drove it. It drove like an American-made car. I mean, there's really really nothing else to say about it. It didn't have any sportiness or anything. It was just an alright driving car. So, number 20. We're getting down to the final few cars here. So, at number 21, we have my dad's current 2023 Audi A3. This is a Premium Plus model. This is what we bought in replace of our Audi e-tron GT. And we bought this car because we thought my brother would be driving it, but now he's been driving the Q8. So this is what we bought. I find this car to be extremely underpowered. It uses the exact same powertrain and the exact same engine as my GTI, except that it has 40 less horsepower. It has around 201 horsepower, which is extremely underrated, and I find the body roll, combined with the body roll and the interior quality, just not where I am expecting Audi to be, which is why it lands at 21. So it's an alright car, I would say, for the entry level. If you're going to get into Audi for the first time ever, this is a great car to get into Audi with. But if you own multiple Audis and you know what the quality is like, you know, this is just a okay car. It's not really the best in my opinion, but that's why it lands at 21. Alright, at number 22, we have my grandfather's now 2021 Honda CR-V. This car is alright. I don't really want to hate on it because, you know, the Honda CR-V does have its place in the world. It's one of the most popular selling Hondas in the United States right now, apart from the Civic and the Accord. This car really does have its place. It's a nice, you know, visually looking car, and it's a nice interior looking car. I do think that this car have its place. It's just not for me, you know. I'm a person of sportiness. I'm a person of, like, really good handling, and the Honda CR-V doesn't have any of those aspects at all. So, you know, that's why it lands at the bottom of this list, but it has its place in the world. It's one of the best-selling entry-level SUVs on the market today. This also goes with number 23, which is a 2021 Toyota RAV4. Once again, just like the Honda CR-V, it has its place in the world. It doesn't have any sportiness or anything like that. However, you can get a 400 horsepower version called the RAV4 Prime, which I heard is pretty quick, so I would like to actually look at one of those in person at some point. But this car wasn't a RAV4 Prime; it was a base model. So yeah, once again, it had this place in the world as one of Toyota's best-selling cars, apart from the Corolla. But other than that, yeah, not really my cup of tea. So moving on to number 24. At number 24, we have a 2020 Jeep Wrangler 2-door. This car lands at number 24 because I just did not like the way this car drove. It really felt like it was so unstable at high speeds. I would not prefer not to get behind the wheel of one of these things ever again. I've never been a Jeep Wrangler person. I've always been on the Bronco side of things if you wanted a fun vehicle to take the doors off. I'm a Ford Bronco person. I love that car. But yeah, Jeep Wrangler 2-door, it's an okay car, but it's also not the worst car I've ever driven. But it's an okay car, not for me. Maybe for some people though, and if you own one, good job. I'm glad you like your car. At number 25, we have the 2015 Honda Fit. This car, we don't get in the United States anymore, but the 2015 Honda Fit was the redesign of the Honda Fit. This car, it was a zippy little car. I did really like this car when just driving in the normal, like, streets and cities and everything. It was on the highway when I didn't like driving this car because it was a windy day and this car really felt like it was about to blow off the road. It's super light, so just keep that in mind if you're gonna buy a Honda Fit. It's super light, but you can get these in a manual transmission, and I find that so cool because Honda does not make any manual transmission cars anymore, but I find that just so cool, apart from the Civic Type R. But anyways, but on a normal Honda Fit, like, you can get a manual transmission. I think that's pretty cool. But overall, yeah, Honda Fit lands at 25 because I just didn't like the way it drove on the highway. Now, the final 4 cars are all Toyotas, and I'm just gonna get 26, 27, and 28 all out of the way, which is 26 was a 2022 Toyota Corolla, 27 was a 2018 Toyota Corolla, and 28 was a 2012 Toyota Camry. These are, if you can't tell or can't guess, these are all the driving school cars I drove. These were the cars I took my test on. These are the cars I got my driving hours on. And they were okay, but boring. End of story. Let's move on to 29. At number 29, the worst car I've ever driven so far is a 2006 Toyota Camry. This was one of our friends. I drove it because I've never drove that old of a car before. And it was interesting. It was, I don't know how to describe it. It was old, you know, it drove like an older car, but it drove all right. It almost died in the middle of the street, but you know, it was an all right car. But 2006 Toyota Camry, yeah, it was fine. So yeah, moving on. And those are all the cars I have driven, 29 to be exact. And I can't wait to add to this list, and maybe when I get to 60 cars, then I'll make another video updating you guys on all the cars I've driven and where they add in this list. I want to try something a little different, but thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, smash that like button, comment down below any other videos you guys want to see. Stay tuned for a 2-year Mark 8 GTI update video, and also stay tuned of a possible new car. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, I did not mean to say that, but stay tuned for the next video where that will be revealed. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, smash that like button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.